And we're live. Woohoo!
Hi, Tim. Hi, Libby.
So,
Hi.
on today's show, we have the amazing Libby Langley, who is a business coach and also has been recently diagnosed at, I would say, well, obviously you're still 21, but relatively lately diagnosed with autism and ADHD as well. So, to begin with, talk about like your journey in life up to your autism diagnosis and looking at it with your current perspective. How is it? Well, how did you come about being diagnosed late autistic? That makes sense.
Okay, I mean, there's lots of stuff that I'm not going to go into because it's
Yeah.
quite personal. But to give kind of, I suppose, the headline stuff, I've always sort of felt like I've not really fitted in life. Really, that's been quite a key theme for me throughout my life, and I know I've sort of been quite intensely interested in certain things that other people aren't, and I don't know, just kind of stuff like that. And I've been an entrepreneur now, business owner for nearly 12 years, and it's been brilliant because I've always had loads of ideas and been able to change and adapt and all these things. And it was a couple of years ago that people started to talk more about ADHD, and I knew someone who'd been diagnosed with it. And the more I read, the more I thought, oh, well, that explains all of that. So that was kind of quite a relief, actually. I haven't been officially diagnosed with ADHD, but absolutely know without any doubt that that's something that I have. And then I went to a talk about ADHD a few months ago, and the guy talking also mentioned autism. And I was talking to the woman sitting next to me, and she said she'd just been diagnosed, and her husband had just been diagnosed, and she gave me some links. And well, I scored very highly on those tests, and so I had a clinical assessment, and yeah, sure enough, I'm autistic. So, and it's made things make sense, but it's also made life a lot more difficult. Yeah, for sure. It's not been easy the last few months since I found out, but everything does make sense, which is a relief.
Libby, how hard is it to get a diagnosis in the UK? I've heard that there's quite a waiting list to see a doctor. I know in the US there's a certain process, but I'm curious about the UK as well.
I paid for a private assessment, so to go through the NHS, it's not a route I chose to take because I wanted to know, and for me, I needed to know kind of there and then. So, but as I understand it, it's a couple of years, can be a couple of years from start to finish through the NHS system. But like I say, that's not a route that I took.
Okay, so I'm sure there will be people. To some extent, well, I mean, I worked in IT for like 18 years, so I know like autistic.
You know all the autistic people, then.
Yeah, but to somebody who is like, well, they might have seen like Rain Man or something, or some like very caricature version of autism. But to the lay person, how would you describe what autism is?
I can only speak from my own experience, and there are so many different degrees on it. I mean, it's categorized as I am understanding it in different levels. So level 1, which I was diagnosed with, is what used to be called Asperger's. It doesn't tend to be referred to that as much anymore, and so that means that you can function fully as much as kind of as much as fully means, but there are certain things that can be a struggle, and the main things are, for me, certainly, is kind of sensory overwhelm, emotional regulation. I suffer very much with something called RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, which means the rejection or fear of perceived rejection is really quite paralyzing sometimes. So that's not fun. But yeah, it varies enormously, and I can't speak for anybody else's experience particularly, but yeah, it varies for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't claim
So
to be an
Libby,
expert. This is a new world for me, right?
Yeah.
So I know what my experience is and what I'm learning about myself and what I'm learning about autism as a whole. But yeah, I'm not an expert in it. I'm just going. I'm living it. I'm going through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Libby, was it a big aha moment for you, not only in life, but in your business? I know I'm late diagnosis ADHD, and
You're right.
exploring that helped me go, oh my word, now my life makes sense. At least I have a reason for, was it,
Yeah.
what was your experience with this and autism and just life experience in your business?
Yeah, I think with the ADHD, the realization about that was just like, oh my God, thank you. This is fine. I can crack on and I know what it makes me good at and, and that kind of stuff. But with the autism, I think there was a huge feeling of shame around it because it's not, like the first thing you say, Tim, is, you've seen Rain Man and it's like, yeah, but that's not necessarily helpful. While some bits in that, absolutely, I can resonate with, it as a whole, it's certainly not a clear depiction of what autism is like. But yeah, so I felt a lot of shame. I felt a huge amount of grief over the fact that I'd got to 48 and had been trying to live a different way. That was really, really hard to come to terms with, and why had no one realized, but because people didn't, right? It wasn't a thing. It was, it just kind of wasn't a thing that anybody talked about for normal people back then. And for my business, the majority of people who come to me, the majority of people I work with have or suspect they're neurodivergent in some way, largely ADHD, but yeah, absolutely. So I guess I've been kind of attracting like-minded people all along the way. But yeah, it's a tough thing to kind of come to terms with, because there are labels and people's responses are not necessarily the most supportive and all of that. So yeah, it's not been a huge amount of fun.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question, as Tim said I might.
Yeah, well, that's because you've got ADHD, so you got, come on with the questions.
There's something referred to in the neurodiverse world called masking and unmasking. Yep. Can you reference that in your own life? Have you unmasked? Yes. Are you exploring that? What does that even look like?
Yeah, I'm a master masker. If there's a master's degree in masking, I've got it. I've masked for my entire life, and I know that women in particular are much better at more adept at masking. And so people will probably say that I'm really sociable, I'm really outgoing, all this kind of stuff, and I can do that, but it's absolutely a mask doing that. It doesn't mean that I'm not. It's not to say I'm disingenuous when I'm doing that at all, but I'm aware that there are certain behaviors or certain ways to behave, I suppose, and almost dive right into that. And then when I come home and the mask comes off, that's not my kind of default mode at all. And since I got and I've always been aware that I guess I kind of behave in a certain way in public. That sounds really wrong, but I think, Christelle, you'll probably understand what I mean when I say that. But and there's always been like work me and going out me and then home me. They've always been different people. But since my diagnosis and since I've kind of told people about this, I'm becoming aware to the unbelievable extent that I mask, and it's quite frightening. Now I'm not able to do it as much, because now I know I'm doing it, and that's, yeah, it's uncomfortable peeling back those layers. But I'm lucky that I've got a husband who is incredible and incredibly supportive, and we've got some dear friends who are very supportive and love me no matter whatever weird I might be. So that's, and some people don't care, in the business world a lot of people don't care, but yeah, it is tough.
Yeah. So I'm waiting. No extra follow-up. Okay. So you've had your diagnosis. Now you're in this new world where you come out as autistic. Now you understand that. So what are some of the things that you are now realizing you should be either asking for or stopping doing because of that diagnosis? How has it changed your life on a sort of day-to-day basis?
Okay, I don't think we have enough time for me to fully answer that question.
Well, best you can, yeah.
But because there's a big old list. But it's definitely, I think the main thing is, do I actually want to do this or feel capable of doing this? Or do I need to ask for extra help? Or do I just say no to it? You know, am I doing this because I'm masking me as doing it? Or is this kind of the right thing to do? And actually, it's had a negative impact on my business because of this RSD, this rejection sensitivity dysphoria. You know, the marketing, I find marketing myself very difficult, and marketing myself and talking about what I do is a masked activity for me, which I think hopefully that makes sense to say it like that. And so as I'm trying to talk more as me, it's a transition, right? I suppose. So maybe that's not right to say it has a negative impact on my business, but it certainly is. There's a shift occurring, and it's because of me and the changes, definitely. But I have asked for a reasonable adjustment somewhere, which was, a big step to kind of do that. And turns out it's fine to do that, because people, if they say they're going to do it, then they just are fine. All right, we'll do it. So actually looking at it as a disability, which it is under the Equality Act, isn't it? 2010, and in the UK certainly. And looking at it as a disability is really, really difficult for me, because I've always been like a super upstart, go-getter kind of person. And accepting that that's like the masked side of me is probably the hardest thing. But also it's really nice to just be able to say, do you know what? I need a bit of help with that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to formulate this question. For those of us who suspect or want to get diagnosed, or just want to go down that path because we have suspected, we've been masking our whole life, that kind of thing, give us some steps to take, or motivation to go do it. Like, why should we get diagnosed? Why should we go take those steps?
It'll be different for everybody. For me, I wanted to know, because I wanted to know what was wrong with me. And there is nothing wrong with me. I've just been diagnosed as autistic. But, I wanted to know why I struggled with certain things, why I would have meltdowns over just like the radio being on, a builder in the street having a radio on. Why is that just, could that derail me and make me in floods of tears and all of this? I knew there was something, and I've never suffered with depression or I've never had a mental health issue to my knowledge, certainly, but there was obviously something for me that didn't sit right. And so once I'd done, there's some online assessments that I did pre in-person assessment, face-to-face assessment, and it was just through doing those that I kind of started to understand a little bit more than actually, my brain is wired a little bit more differently, and that's a little bit differently. And that's perhaps why I can't cope with some things, but I'm absolutely brilliant at others. And I didn't, I didn't realize necessarily how good I was at certain things that I just assumed everyone could do. But it's like, oh no, they don't see the world like that, which is amazing for me. So for me, it was important to get the official diagnosis, but unless you go through the NHS, it's not recognized as like an official diagnosis, if you like, because I've paid to have it privately. So I couldn't get, I don't know, whatever support is available through the NHS. I couldn't get it. So to me, that's made no difference. It was just for my own, for my own understanding and for my own sake and my own sanity.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a follow-up. I wonder how many women, this is very much directed for women, I wonder how many women have just naturally masked their entire life and are now on that, like, have I masked my entire life, or am I neurodiverse? Do I have some sort of neurodiversity that...
A huge percentage. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were just saying that we wonder actually if, neurotypical is actually a smaller percentage of the population, and it's just that people aren't diagnosed and it's not as widely recognized. If you've got this ADHD talk that I went to a few months ago, pre-diagnosis, one of the things he was talking about ADHD, obviously, but what he was saying about the amount of people who have diabetes and the support that's available and the millions of pounds that's chucked into prevention, education, support and all of that. But actually, it's perfectly possible that there are the same amount of people who have ADHD or autism or stuff, and it's 2 years or 5 years to get a diagnosis. It's completely something's kind of completely out of alignment. And I think that mental health services and support as a whole are, certainly in the UK, are not necessarily great across the board.
I think a lot, I don't know if it's like this in the UK, but I think a lot of us are figuring it out ourselves and then going to the doctor and saying, can you please? that seems to be the trend. Like, we're having to educate ourselves and then going to the doctor and saying, will you just tell me that this is what I think it is?
Well, this is the thing that it's like ADHD is trendy now because everybody's got it, and they're talking about overdiagnosis and all this stuff. And it's not, nobody wants any of these things, right? We all just want to live our lives in a comfortable and easy way. But it's because there's so much more awareness, and particularly with women over 40, there's so many conversations about this that exactly the same as me. It's like, you look at a few memes or something, you think, well, shit, yeah, that's me too. And then you read more deeply, and then, you might possibly do some proper assessments and all of this. And that's why it's just that awareness is more apparent. So more people are being diagnosed, but there are a lot of people who choose not to get diagnosed or are just waiting in the system, for sure. Thousands of people.
Yeah, there's a long waiting list, isn't there? It's like 2 years odd for some places for people to get a diagnosis.
More than that in some places, yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so I promised to talk about your business coach side as well. So let's talk about, because I don't know how long you've been working as a business coach, but you've been working for a business coach for a while. So
12 years, nearly 12 years.
Yeah. Well, let's throw in the autism thing in a little bit. What did you do, and has that changed since your autism diagnosis?
Well, I'm so newly diagnosed that I'm going through a transition of change at the moment, and I'm going to take a bit of a step back just to kind of figure out what works for me and what I want to do, and that, I guess. So there'll be another iteration, but over the years I've pivoted lots of times and focused on lots of different things. And to start with, I was a social media business coach, then more of a digital marketing as a whole, marketing strategist. So it's always been around kind of business and coaching with a marketing slant. But I've run online group programs, I've done face-to-face training, I've run qualifications, I've all sorts of stuff, ad management, and one-to-one coaching and group coaching. So I think that has been certainly has been part of my neurodiversity along the way. This, particularly the ADHD side, it's like, right, new idea. But when you work for yourself, you can just do that, right? You can I've had a new idea. This is launching something new, everybody. And so I've done that lots and lots of times over the years. And I think now the autism diagnosis is just kind of making me maybe slow down a bit and stop. And my autism is stronger than my ADHD often. And to me, the autism is sort of the struggle stuff. The ADHD is the brilliant ideas and making change and all of that side of things. So it's just a period of adjustment, but who knows where it's going to go next? I can't tell you that, because what I think today ain't going to be what I think tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you still currently taking clients for your business, however?
Yeah, I am, but I am. Yeah, I'm gonna have a bit of time off from kind of marketing myself. That's what I need to do. Not necessarily doing the client work, but just stepping back from the marketing, which is kind of the bit that I struggle with always. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone needs a business coach, why would they come to Libby?
Because I can almost guarantee that whatever they're going through, I've been there and done that.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've built a team. I've made a team redundant. I've worked in lots of different things. I've got tons of experience, and I think one of the things that people say to me is that I always am really straightforward in the way I talk, thanks to my neurodiversity, and I ask lots of probing questions, thanks to my neurodiversity, and I help people kind of see things in a way that they can't. I'm very ordinary and down to earth, and just help people feel better about themselves and about their business. And I think, I don't say just in terms to kind of undersell it or devalue it, but that's massive. I think just feeling better about what you do, simplifying what you do, and just enjoying your life more is the best thing that I could give to people.
Yeah. So I think I asked this question to Dave, who was a health coach a few weeks ago, but I'll ask it to you. So what would be your number one tip that you think most businesses, like sole entrepreneurs or businesses you do, get wrong and could fix, and you help? What is the one thing that you help people with the most that they may or may not be aware of when they come to you?
That's like 3 questions you've just asked me.
Yeah, well, pick whatever one you like out of them. Probably the last one.
I think the biggest thing is that people do stuff because it's what they think they should do, and not necessarily what they want or need to do. That's a massive thing, and we're all a bit guilty of that somewhere along the way. You hear someone say something on Instagram, you're like, oh, I must do that. You don't need to do any of this stuff. And my book that I wrote, Life in Business, there's a lot in there about keeping things simple and asking yourself, does this make me happy? Does this make me happy? Does this make me happy? And if you start with that approach in business, you're going to go a long way. And then all the practicalities about pricing and business structure and all of that can kind of just fall into place behind leading absolutely with your, sound too woo-woo, but absolutely leading with your heart.
Okay, so tell us about your book. Can you hold it up for us again, and then tell us about it and where we can find it? But mostly tell us about it.
I'm reverse angle. That's really confusing. Okay,
you might want to put it on the other side, and then you get the whole kind of
Whoa.
Well, all right. Yeah.
That's really difficult. Okay, this is a skill I don't have.
There is a button somewhere to reverse it.
There it is.
I think it's right side. I'm looking at it the right way. Is it?
Yeah, no, it's I'm mirror image because I'm holding this. So I'm trying to
reverse so that you read it the right way. But
I see.
The way that it actually, it's not like a mirror. It's switched.
It's like my hair's the wrong way around, which is just it's all really confusing. But anyway, fine. But so it's available on Amazon, and it is. Well, it's called Life in Business, and the subtitle is Easy Ways to Work Less, Earn More, and Embrace True Happiness. And that is really what I believe, whichever iteration my business is in, or whatever it is that my clients do, it's like if you're happy doing it, you're making profit, you're on a winner.
Yeah. I think you've also got a podcast as well, haven't you?
I do have a podcast. Yeah, new episode comes out every Thursday. That's also called Life in Business because it's easier if everything's just called the same thing.
Tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your podcast, Libby. Do you interview guests or is it all you?
I don't know. My podcast is just me. And I talk about business things, give tips and hints, and try and make business easier for people. And I share my own experiences and will inject a bit of humor and relatable stuff in there too. But it's always about, there's a different business topic each week that I share, but it's really accessible. And I work very much with people who work on their own, and I work on my own. So I, you know, for corporates, sure, you can get some inspiration from it and stuff, but it's very much for solopreneurs, individual business owners. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to ask a bizarrely off the ball question, but what do you think of Threads as a platform?
Love it.
Yeah, because I love Threads as well.
Okay, so Threads. Let's talk about Threads. I used to be, when I first started my business, I was massively active on Twitter. And before I started the business, so like 2010 to 2013 or stuff, I was massively active on Twitter, and I couldn't have built my business without Twitter. Yeah. However, haven't really used it since 2015 because it's not that community anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think. And I didn't really realize anything was missing because Instagram, I've got all my business buddies. Facebook is where I've got people I actually know. LinkedIn. But when Threads launched, it's like Twitter was to start with. And it's just a place where you can have conversations with people, and it's not really cluttered. And you can have conversations with big names as well. You know, even like Zuck and Adam Asori, they kind of reply to stuff and read stuff, and that's really nice that it's not this big, I need to impress you, oh, I need to create some Canva graphics, I need to marketplace. It's not like that, and to me that's just a huge relief. And I'm not masking on Threads, maybe a bit, but not in the same way. And actually I've had some really interesting conversations, and I've been invited on a couple of podcasts as a result. So, which is, I know it's only like 2 weeks in, isn't it? But I think it's a really nice place to be at the minute. So I reckon.
Is there a strategy for Threads? Is it going back to the way Twitter once was, or do we just jump in and go?
Yeah, you just kind of jump in and start posting stuff, and the strategists are there, right? You know, and I mean, I've been a strategist, right? But it's like, just start talking to people and have some like we used to just have conversations. And if all you do is have a conversation that's made you smile, then that's still worth doing. Don't think of it necessarily as a marketing platform. I have zero strategy for Threads. And like I say, even in 2 weeks, it's led to a couple of opportunities. I've met someone in person who I started chatting to on Threads. It just feels nicer and feels needed. Yeah.
Okay, so is it my question or is it Christelle's question? I don't know. She had a follow-up.
I was getting you
I saw on your, I think it might have been both Threads and Instagram, that you went to this autistic conference or event, which seemed quite interesting. So talk a little bit about that, because you had kind of like it was like a silent disco kind of conference or something.
I mean, it wasn't, but okay, it's called. I know what you're referring to. It was called the Autism Show, and they have one in London, one in Birmingham, and I went to the one in Manchester. And it's partly for professionals who work in the mental health sphere. I don't know, still learning all the expressions, you see. And partly for people who are autistic, and partly for carers of people who are autistic. So it was a right odd mix of people there. There were some stands and some talks, so pretty standard conference stuff. But it was just, I mean, I've been to lots of conferences, you know, Tim, we've been to the same one in San Diego a few times. And it's really different going to a business conference than it is going to a conference to like learn about yourself. So it was a bit overwhelming, even though, you know, they reduced the lighting and gave you a video beforehand to watch of how the hall was laid out, and all really useful stuff, actually. But yeah, the talks were really interesting. The ones I went to were from autistic people talking about their challenges in their life, I suppose. But all of them, all the talks, no matter which hall you were in or which stage you were at, it was called silent seminars. Yeah. And the person presenting just talks normally into the mic, and you have to have the headphones on to be able to hear them. And it's such a good idea because you can put your own volume up and down. It just means that the hall or the room isn't overwhelmed with noise. So I thought that was an amazing idea. I've never come across that before, but I think every conference should do that because it just was such a good idea. Yeah. So it was challenging a bit, but useful.
I mean, maybe every classroom should be doing this. It'd be very helpful in the school. I can see the school classroom doing this as well. It'd be very helpful for people like me who have a hard time focusing.
Yeah, it's like, why are you listening to music instead of?
I think it was a great. I mean, obviously they know what they're doing, right, for a neurodivergent audience. But for the concentration thing was interesting because I'm not bad at concentrating, I think, but it certainly made me like in the zone of absolutely just listening. I could sort of still see what was going on, of course, and you're looking around and all that, but you don't necessarily need to look at the person when they're talking because it's there. I thought it was really, really, really good, and I honestly think that other conferences could learn from the experience for sure. Yeah. Wow,
that's fascinating.
Yeah,
Libby, we're coming to the end of the road, the end of the show. Tim, if you don't have a follow-up question.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Where can our friends find you? People who come on late and want to find you, hire you as a business coach, maybe ask you some questions for their own curiosity. Where can they find you online? I'm on all the social media networks. I'm at Libby Langley on Instagram and Threads and Facebook. Yeah, if you just search for Libby Langley, you'll be able to find me. And my website is libbylangley.com. And you can get my podcast, Life in Business, anywhere you find a podcast. And you can get my book, Life in Business, on Amazon, on Kindle and in paperback.
Well, thanks so much for being the guest. And I'm going to try and not screw up the outro like I normally do. And thanks to everybody who watches and everybody who's watching the replay. So,
thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
This is